Hello. 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 So we're here on a Thursday. I am in use up ingredients mode, especially since I'm planning a little trip for the weekend, so I want to use up stuff, especially before I leave. To that end, we have the rest of that pineapple. Remember the pineapple? We have the rest of the pineapple. It's looking a little sad and a little oxidized, but not gone off, just a little sad. So we're going to use the whole thing because there's no way it's going to survive much longer. So we're going to use that whole thing. And then I'm probably going to end up with a vegetable. Using stuff. We're using things up. I only purchased. Okay, technically, I purchased two things. I purchased this tiny fruit, which is going to complement our pineapple dish, and I purchased. I was trying to think of a main dish, and I found this on a pretty nice discount. Just tail end of a salmon. So it's a nice thin piece, so we can do it real quick. So I'm expecting a very quick, snappy project today. And in honor of the extreme crushing heat that we've been having, we're going to make something bright and fresh and tropical and refreshing and nice. Which also means not a lot of time on the stove, and hopefully not a ton of cleanup, because that's another thing I want to avoid right now, is a ton of extra cleanup for the aforementioned planning a trip. So yeah, I guess we'll get stuck in. No reason to put it off. So we're going to start by making a marinade for our piece of salmon here. And we're actually going to start by getting it out of there. Pineapple soup. It will be cold like a gazpacho, yes. Also, welcome in, Ruya. Yes, it's going to be cold. It's going to be sweet, but we're not adding additional sugar to it. It's just going to be the natural sweetness of the fruit. This guy's going in there. Some basil's going in there. And so it's not just going to be a straight up like dessert soup. It's going to be sort of, hopefully, straddling the line between a sweet and a less sweet thing. But step one, I want to get the fish here on a marinade, and let's get. Where were you? How did you get in there? Marinade. So I want this to be a sugar marinade, but not like all sugar. Sweet and salty, but there needs to be enough sugar in there to caramelize as we cook it. So, get it a bag that'll fit into. Because I'm going for a sort of nice brown surface. This is a pretty thin piece, so it should not be difficult to cook it fast and right through. It's coho salmon, according to the label. So let's put it in the thick way. How's things on your neck of the world, your end of the woods? Other variations of phrase. I had a crazy nutso heat wave which was spinning up on Tuesday when we were here, and then crushed us all Wednesday. And it's still pretty warm today, but it's on the way out. It's calming down again. So it was just a quick blast, but it was rough. So I'm glad we're through that. I put a picture of my dinner from yesterday. Yesterday I made a nice fresh thing as well, a rice bowl, partly because I wanted something that wasn't super hot, but also because I was going out. And if you missed that, that is on my Instagram or on my Discord. Let's see. I'm going to assemble our marinade in a separate bowl, in a side bowl, not a separate bowl, in a bowl before I pour it in there so I can make sure that it's nice and stirred together. Rainy yesterday, hot and humid today. It's still very humid where I am as well. We didn't lose the humidity, but we're gradually losing the heat. These stupid little flies. I'm not sure what they're here for. Had them all week. I can't seem to track down their source. So let's start with a tablespoon of soy sauce. I'm just going to concoct this. I don't have a recipe for this. We're just going to start concocting and see what becomes of it. This is Lyle's Golden Syrup, which is a sugarcane syrup. Well, let's add a big old gloop of that. So far we've got 1 part syrup, 1 part soy sauce. Let's add a dash of sesame oil. Not too much. Ooh, a little bit of mirin would be good. Well, not too much. I want this to be a pretty sticky coating, but a little bit of mirin is a good idea. I will add go for a half of mirin. I should mention about mirin. I used to get the standard little bottle of mirin that's in like the Asian foods aisle, but most recently I got this kind, which is in the alcohol section because it is proper alcoholic mirin. And let me tell you, it makes a huge difference in the finished dishes. These little flies. It makes a huge difference in these finished dishes. It just tastes a lot better. Okay. Get this stirred so that that syrup is properly dissolved. This is why I wanted to do it in a separate bowl, because otherwise it's hard to get the syrup to really combine with the liquids if you just throw it all in the bag. Let's give this guy a little taster. This stuff is 8%, but I've never used it without it being heated at some stage. So I suppose the percent is less important, but I'm sure there are applications where the specific alcohol percent matters. But it just makes a big difference. I think it makes a big difference in the things that I'm applying it to. I always didn't like mirin when I was using the other kind. And since I got this, I've reached for it more and more often because it really works. Let's throw a couple of powders in just to goose this up. So that's onion powder. This is a lot of garlic powder. Possibly too much garlic powder. And a bit of cayenne. That might have been, I might have slipped on the garlic powder there. It might be too much. Although the powders will mostly just stick to the surface. Rather than get absorbed in, so that might work out fine. Sugars and salts will get absorbed into the flesh, but the more complex flavor molecules in things like garlic and onion can't actually be absorbed in, and they just kind of adhere to the surface. Lemongrass. I don't have any prepared lemongrass. I have some growing outside. I could go cut some. But I don't know. The fruit soup is going to be a much brighter flavor anyways, so I'm not sure I need to add the brightness to this, because this can be sort of the savory counterpoint to that brightness. So I think I'm just going to call it there and not go overboard with my flavors. And then we just kind of gently get rid of the air. Massage around, and I should have done this this way. Easy enough to rotate it in the bag, but I should have done it that way to begin with, so that it's really immersed down there. And then we fold it this way. Fold it over. And then we just stick that in the fridge, or room temp if you're not worried about it, but I'm going to throw it in the fridge. And by the time we are finished making our soup, which also has to chill, that will have marinated enough for me to just take it out and fry it up. Fish flesh takes on marinades very, very quickly. So remember we did it with the pork. I had an overnight marinade and it was still pretty lightly flavored. This one I expect to be pretty thoroughly flavored even with just this brief marinade, simply because fish takes on the flavors faster. Let me set a few things aside here. I'm expecting us to have a little bit of a shorter show today, which is why I started late. Board out scraps, or have a scraps bowl. So we started late on that assumption. So if something goes wrong, it's only been not even 20 minutes, so I think we're in the clear. A big chunk of my time is going to be cutting up this pineapple, which is getting a little, like I said, it's a little oxidized. It's not a disaster, but we're going to lose a few bits of it as we sort of trim it down. But I intend to use the entire remainder of it. I've been cutting pieces off and using it bit by bit, but it was such a big thing that there's quite a lot left. So, let's get the big knife out. Because we're going to want that core out completely. So as you can see, a little bit of oxidation on the outer surfaces, but the inside is still nice and perfect. I probably shouldn't have trimmed quite as much of the skin when I was trimming it last time. But we're going to lose some of that anyways, because I want to get rid of these little eyes. I tried rooting the crown, which I've done before, of this guy, and it absolutely did not work this time. It was an almost immediate, obvious fail, and I ended up throwing it out, which was a little bit sad, because I know you can root the crowns, and if you're lucky and you've got a good growing conditions, grow new pineapple off of them. And I've had success in the past with them rooting. I've never had success with them fruiting, and I think that's just because of the climate I'm in. They don't get enough sun, even though I'm keeping them nice and warm. They just don't get enough sun year round. But they're a nice decorative plant, even when they don't give you a fruit. So that's the side that got real oxidized. You can actually see the honeycomb structure of the pineapple where it's sort of oxidizing around the edges. That's a little bit neat. Be very careful if you cut the way I'm cutting right now, because my hand is in the direction of the blade, and if you slip, it's going to go right into your hand. So either be extremely confident or have a very sharp blade. A very sharp blade will slip less and have far less danger of slipping into your hand as a result than a dull blade. Sharp blades are safer in the kitchen than dull ones by a long shot. That looks pretty well trimmed to me, so let's split it one more time right along the core, because that core is hard, and then just get under it and sort of zip it out the middle. I can do vertically, actually. I don't know how fruit like this evolved with these connected cluster pieces like this. It's so weird. I mean, I'm not saying that this is what a wild pineapple looks like, but the cluster fruit has to have come from somewhere. I don't think it was concocted from a individual fruit. Actually, no. The core part is too tough. This one, though, is not. So I think we nailed the cut depth. Let me get out a bowl to contain the pieces. We're going to dice this up. Mm. This is quite a large pineapple. So this should make quite a bit of the pineapple soup. Which is good, because I'm going to have some for breakfast tomorrow. It seems like both a good sort of fresh thing for a hot day, but also okay, I did look up a recipe. I don't have it up right now. I'm just kind of crudely remembering. Cut this way. I'm roughly remembering it. But it sounded like both a fresh summery tropical soup and potentially a breakfasty fruit smoothie. I've got quite a lot of pineapple. Mmm. Mmm. But pineapple, let me tell you, it's one of those things. It just hits better when it's super fresh and super ripe. It's one of those things where I was never a big fan of pineapple when all I had were keep snacking on these pieces. When all I had was the canned kind and those green ones that you get at the grocery store. Mm. The fresh kind here is just, it's a cut above. Although, it's even better when it hasn't been sitting in the fridge and oxidizing a little bit. This is down a little bit from the super fresh state it was in when we used it on the pizza. Let me rinse the cutting board down. And let's give it a dry as well, because I'm going to need to use it. I just don't want all that pineapple juice staying on there and getting all sticky. Okay. Okay, board is back. Part 2. This little guy. Anybody know what this is? I'll give you a hint. It's exactly what it looks like it is. No, it's not a plantain. That is a good guess, and it is extremely close to a plantain. This is a Thai banana, the little tiny guys. So it's a sweet banana, not a starchy banana like a plantain. Also, hi, Bookwoman, welcome in. But they're real small. This is as big as they get. I needed some banana for this, but not very much banana. So I didn't want to get a full-size banana. So I went and got a tiny banana for 28 cents. They're real cheap. because one of the stores near me always has these. Actually, they were very low this time. They only had 3 left, but they still had them. So they're right next to the red bananas, and they're smaller than the red bananas. And they're a little bit sweeter, too. We want the banana for the thickening power. I got this at the Woodman's near me in the fruits section. So we want the banana because of the way it sort of thickens. The same reason you throw it into a smoothie. It sort of thicks up the blend. We have an ad coming up in a couple of minutes. I've got so much pineapple here. I'm just going to keep snacking on it because I believe, more than I need. So we're just going to keep taking chunks of pineapple. I should get up my reference recipe. Pineapple soup. Because I am basically following this recipe, except I'm making a bunch of changes to it. Pineapple, lime. I've got limes. Guava. I don't have guavas. Since I don't have guavas, we have to come up with something else that's like a guava. Here's a lime. I think I'm going to zest the lime and throw that in there as well, not just juice it. Dates, which I don't have. And the fun thing that really drew me to this idea, basil and cotija cheese. Dates. I don't have anything like dates either. The dates are supposed to bring a slightly sticky sweetness to the mix. There's like little descriptors in here as to what each thing does. So we could try to mimic that with something like a jam. So let me, okay, before I do anything else, we need to open this can, because there's coconut milk in this. So we need to open this coconut milk before I move on. Let me tell you, I've learned to love the this kind of cutter. Even though it's a little bit of a stiffer cut. Oop. We want that part of the coconut and the thick part at the top. And I'm just going to dump it right into, we've got the food processor thing right here. We're just going to dump stuff directly in to it. So I didn't shake up, or did I shake up? I can't remember if I shook this. I may have shaken it up out of instinct because it looks a little shaken. But let's try to get the. Oh yeah, it's still kind of separated. So we want the white part at the top and not so much the liquidy part at the bottom. Which can be a little bit tricky to get out if it's not real solid. But canned coconut milk almost always separates like this. And the top part, they charge a premium for a can of coconut cream. The top part of the coconut milk is basically the coconut cream that they're charging a premium for. You're paying for them to have separated it out for you. Banana. And we don't want to use dairy for this. We're using coconut because we don't want to use dairy because of all the acid in the pineapple, as well as the lime that we're going to add to it. But especially because there's so much pineapple, it'll curdle the heck out of it. So we're going to zest this lime this way. Right into the thing. Limes. Another thing that I've got that I need to use up. So, you know, the use up things. Especially since our friend over at Fox Familiar Farms, you can follow him on Instagram. He posts pictures of his wonderful, productive home garden. Just provided me with a bunch more odds and ends that are nice and fresh. So we got to make sure we use up the old ones because now there's a bunch of new ones already. Late summer, harvests are coming in. Always zest your citrus before you juice it. It is nigh impossible, not completely impossible, but nigh impossible to zest it effectively afterwards, because it loses its integrity. So we're not using any of the fresh ingredients I just received. Instead, we're using older things that need to be used up because I wasn't expecting to receive a bunch of fresh ingredients. Okay. If you press down on your lime or your citrus and roll it, it softens it up so that when you cut it, it is easier to squeeze the juice out. And we're just going to, again, ream it right into the thing. Any pulp is fine. I guess if it's a real seedy one, avoid the seeds, but the pulp is just going to get blended into the rest of this when we activate the device. So, how... I already asked about how things are going with the weather. Ryu, you answered. Anybody doing anything interesting? Anybody eating anything interesting? I love to hear about foods. Yeah. The citrus reamer always feels like it's about to give up on me. Okay. The juice and zest of one lime. Fresh basil. Which I, of course, have this red basil, so we're going to be little red flecks in here instead of little green flecks. I think that looks probably about a good amount of basil. And then it's, according to this reference, we're using Fearless Dining's recipe for this. Because it's a experimental project. It calls for 3 cups of pineapple, parentheses, 1 whole pineapple, which, having seen pineapples, they are very variable in size. So we're going to go with 3 cups, 3 heaping cups, because there's a lot of air spaces in there. See what it looks like. See how much I've got left. I might end up with a lot of snacking pineapple. Okay, so we have about 4 cups of pineapple from that pineapple. Now we don't have the dates or the guava juice. That's the thing, it calls for guava juice. So we could add another liquid. Making ants climbing a tree. I'm not familiar with that. Is that anything like ants on a log? It sounds like it is likely similar. What that is, celery, peanut butter, and raisins. And a margarita pizza with prosciutto. That sounds tasty. A sweet liquid. Those both sound like thing. Ground pork with noodles. The pork is the ants. Okay, well I don't know that one then. You've stumped me. You've come out of left field on me again. You're pretty good at that. Oop. A fly has visited my pineapple scraps. You can have the scraps, fly, because they're going to get thrown away anyways. What are you? I'm going to give it a dollop of all fruit spreadable raspberry, which contains some juice concentrates, raspberries, and some pectin, I suppose. But it doesn't have any added sugars, and I think that's going to be the closest we get to a fruit juice. And it also doesn't have any added colors, so it's not like it's going to dye our thing some sort of garish red. And that'll be the stand-in for the dates. Which are supposed to be sort of a sticky sweet thing. Plus, it's something I had to use up. So, perfect. That's used up. We had just about 1 dose of that left. It's a tasty kind of thing because it's just fruit, as the thing suggests. It's just fruit. It's no added sugar. The sweetness comes from just the fruits that are in it. That's what it makes it. It makes it quite tasty, and it makes it very fruit flavor forward instead of having that sort of, I don't know, syrupiness that a lot of commercial jams and jellies have because they add a bunch of sugar to help it preserve. Guava juice. It's the one thing that I'm not sure about what it is 4 in the recipe. Guava juice. If you can't find guava juice, apple juice will also work. I don't have apple juice either. Didn't help. Didn't help. I don't have any fruit juices on hand. That is the issue here. I have no fruit juices on hand at all, except for lemon juice, and I'm not adding that. It doesn't need very much, so we could potentially get away with maybe just ignoring it. Because yeah, I don't have anything I think that can stand in for that without dramatically changing the profile. I could make it alcoholic. I've got some alcohols, but I think that would dramatically change the profile as well. I guess we're gonna skip that part. Well, we're not gonna skip it, but we're gonna just throw some water in. Ma Yi Shang Shu, hole in the wall Chinese place until they closed. I will have to look that one up and give it a shot. So I'm adding, because I want the amount of liquid, and I'm just going to add a little bit of water so that we have a little bit more liquid to work with. Oh, I'm an idiot. I could have just added that same quantity of the liquid part of the bottom of the coconut. I should have just used that. I forgot it was there. Oh well. Then it wouldn't have watered down our flavor at all. Oh well. Late now. Let's move our board. Let's bring the motor of our mixer into play here. Move things out of the way. Gotta find the come on. What the heck? There you go. You gotta find the spot where they connect. The top bit is easier because there's a thing that lines up on the corner here. And then we blend it. Power on. I'm going to scrape the sides down, but we need a little bit more time on it. Saizan, welcome in. You are first, and you have requested a moisten. Moist. Yes, delicious pineapple in the thing. It is being blended to heck and back. Oh my god, and Shining Spear has resubscribed. Look at all those chickens. Indeed. You know, when I was looking up pineapple soup ideas, you know, as you do, the other option I stumbled across was a pineapple chicken soup that actually had very similar ingredients to this, except that it was hot, red, and had chicken in it. But thank you so much for subscribing. And glad to see both of you showing up at this, my darkest hour. Let's give it some more time on low. So I want it to be as smooth as I can get it. So I'm going to put it on high and let it really tear into it. That's probably about as smooth as it's going to get. It doesn't look like it's changing much anymore. I'm sorry about the glare right on the thing there. I don't know how to fix that. It'd be slide it up a little bit just so you can see more of it. Anyways, I don't think we're going to get it any smoother than that. There's a little bit of a visible texture to it. If I take the lid off, you might be able to see it on the camera. There's a tiny bit of a visible texture to it, in addition to the dark spots, which are a combination of our basil leaves and the seeds from our pineapple, because there's those little tiny seeds hidden in there. I'm going to give it a quick taster to see if I want to adjust the seasonings at all before we put it in. Fascinating. Fascinating. It probably didn't need the water, because I think there's plenty of liquid in there. God, the one in the picture is so smooth compared to the one I've got. They might just have a higher powered blender than I do. In fact, I think they do, because it says put it in your Vitamix, and I don't have a Vitamix. And those are crazy powerful blenders. I want to put... It needs... You know what it needs? You know what it needs is a pinch of salt. A pinch of salt, and I'm actually going to cut a little bit more basil and throw it in there and blend it up. So, out to the garden. Grab some of this bolting basil. Basil, of course, loses some of its flavor when it bolts, so I think we're just having a case of the basil kind of being over the hill and not being as strong as it was earlier when it wasn't constantly trying to flower. So just the leaves. I don't want stem pieces in here. Just the tender basil leaves and that half leaf. Okay, so a little bit of salt and some more basil is, oh, you know, I'm gonna give it just a smidge of cayenne pepper. Honestly, I'm surprised that the original recipe doesn't have salt on it. Power. Blend. Okay. Give it another quick taster, but I don't think I'm going to modify it much more from here. Yes. It's going to have to sort of sit with itself and get to know, the flavors have to get to know each other a little bit. Turn it off. The flavors definitely have to get to know each other a little bit. I'm going to move this over to the sink so I can take the blade out. But we're putting it in a bowl straight away. And then my foot. I drifted on my foot. The same foot. My poor burned foot. Now it has pineapple on it. So this is going to chill now for the remainder until I need it at the end when we go for serving. And the other part I'm going to put in a different container and also chill. Let's put it in a jar. There's also a chunk of pineapple that didn't get in the blades right over there on the side. About half a jar, and judging by this, knowing how big that bowl is, I'd say we probably made about a full jar's worth. Yeah. Weren't you here on Tuesday? I burned my foot on the oil from the fried tacos amidst all of the mess. It splashed out the pan and got on my foot. Okay. So we're going to just close this up. This can be a smoothie or some such. Because the one in the bowl is the one I'm going to be serving. Okay. That needs to be washed. But the base of the device, with its really strong suction cups, can just be removed from the room. Okay. I don't want to comment too much on the flavor until we get to the actual tasting section. But it's nice. I will say already that it's a pretty nice result I've got. Part two. That took a little bit longer than I expected, actually. Let's get the fish back out. It's only been in there since the start of stream. This is, as a reminder, a golden syrup soy sauce, onion, garlic, cayenne marinade. Let me get out a pan. Oil it up and get it hot. Pan, oil, hot. And I think I want a vegetable to go with this. So, I got one of these snake gourds still. I'm gonna fry that up like a vegetable. Just a saute as is. Just the fish doesn't look quite so alone on the plate. I'm a big fan of these. I'm going to look for these more in the future. They have changed since we tried them out the first time. I can demonstrate exactly how as well by cutting right through the middle. The interior has become shrunken away and sort of spongy. It's pulling back from the walls. Leaving these big gaps in the middle. Oop. And, like that one right there, some of the seeds have matured. Because there were definitely no mature seeds when I started this thing, but a couple of them have gone through with it. Oop. There's one there too. Yeah, actually, I already presented a seed. We'll see if it takes. I don't know if these seeds are going to be viable. Is the thing. They came out of this immature fruit. But he's got one, so it might take. But that's what the seeds look like. They got little divots on the sides. This one just got cut through. Oop. So there's a little embryo in there. So yeah, I've been a big fan of these things. I like it when I try out a new vegetable and it becomes an addition to my repertoire. Although, oh, there's a seed there too. Although this is not as big a winner as the breadfruit. Breadfruit remains a colossal winner from just a, that's weird, let me try that. So we're over here, I just threw those in a pan. We'll give them a little salt. And we're just going to give them a nice sort of hot, quick saute. So temp up. Get them tossed around. Black pepper. Tidy up a little bit. So those are going to take a little bit longer than the fish will, so I'm going to start them. So the things that impress me about these are, first of all, they taste like cucumbers. But you can cook them. They're pretty robust. You can cook them like this, which I wouldn't do with a cucumber. I think they would kind of fall apart if you tried to do a high heat saute on them. They retain their crunch when I boiled them, which was very interesting. I don't know. There's not many vegetables that'll do that. But the first time we used these, I put them in a soup and I simmered them for a while, and they still had their texture and their crunch after all that, which was very impressive. And also, I haven't been storing these particularly carefully. They've just been sitting out on my counter. and they have not gone moldy. They've not gone rotten. They haven't even developed any spots. The only thing that happened is the interior has dried out a little bit. So they're also like very stable. So I've been very impressed with them. But I do have to use them up, so we're using this one up. And I've got a bunch of snacking pineapple. It's pineapple-licious. Boy. So, pineapples are showing up at my grocery stores. There's always a couple there, you know, they come from some greenhouse somewhere. But they're like properly in season now. There's big piles of them showing up. If you see one that has that beautiful gold, almost orange rind, grab it. Those are the kings of pineapples. Because they're actually properly ripe. You can buy a green one, but let it sit around and ripen and hope it actually gets there. Pineapple. So I will notice these guys have soaked up most of the oil that was in the pan. So I guess that they have a spongy quality to them. It's a good thing I didn't heavily oil the pan because we might end up with a soggy sponge. I'm trying to get some browning on them and they're resisting a little bit. They've got little edges on them, but they're a little resistant. But let's call them there. Transfer them to the plate. Refresh it with just a dab of oil. There is some oil there, but I just want a dab more. We don't need much. And we'll move on to the fish, which I'm not going to rinse our marinade off at all. We're going to take it out of the thing here and directly onto the pan with it. Flesh side down to start so that it has a chance to firm up a little bit before we flip it to the skin side. If you start it on the skin side, the skin will curl and it'll lift itself away from the pan. So you always want to start these on the flesh side, and then once the flesh side has sort of firmed up, you can switch it. A bit of butter, what, on the snake gourd? Possibly, but I think they may have a pretty good flavor by themselves. I don't think they need a lot of extensive doctoring up. Do I have any butter? I'd be opening a new thing of butter if I did that as well. So I'm gonna not do that on account of a couple of reasons. We're trying to get the fish here to be nice and dark, caramelized, almost blackened on the flesh side. We've used a sugary marinade, and I've just slapped it in there and left it with that goal. Salmon and swordfish in the air fryer. So I've been swordfish. Wow, I hardly ever have swordfish. Good on you. I've been doing the little salted. If you remember my salted salmon project, we're still working through those. These guys are salted salmon from March. We're working through these. These I throw in the air fryer. And the air fryer gets the skin super crispy. If I put them in long enough. If I undershoot it, then the skin comes out a little bit chewy. But if you really blast them, the skin comes out super crispy. What do you think? Is it going to be dark, almost blackened on the bottom? Yes, it is. That's exactly what I was looking for. This is not burnt fish. This is the sugar in our marinade. Probably burning a little bit, but getting that nice dark color on it. And then I'm going to give it a tiny splash of water and a lid to ensure that it is cooked right through to the middle, because again, this was discount bin salmon, so I don't want to shoot this one for a blush in the middle, because it was discount binned. So we're gonna make sure it's actually cooked through, but I don't want to just char the bottom. Pardon me. An uninvited guest who is being shown the door. So we're going to give that a brief little steaming to ensure that it's cooked through to the middle without completely drying it out, which it probably has already done at that stage. It doesn't take very long with a piece that's as thin as this. Ooh, a lemon delay. I don't know. I didn't come up with a sauce for it. We still have time to come up with a sauce. It would have to be something quick. It would have to be something quick. But we could do a sauce. In fact, we probably should do a sauce just for the plating. Let me peek at the bottom. I'm going to call that done. We don't want it to be burnt to a crisp. We just want it to be really well cooked. A nice thin piece like this, cooks pretty fast, and the heat was pretty high, and we gave it that quick steam bath just to ensure that it would get cooked. I plated it the wrong way around. For the curvature of this plate, hot. For the curvature of this plate, it wants to be plated that way, which means I got to clean the plate up. Which is fine, which is fine. Okay. So a quick sauce, huh? I don't have any aioli on hand, but I can make an imitation sauce, a quick, dirty imitator. Let's see, tiny whisk needs to be conscripted again. Let's see, if I want it to be, we're gonna go with the American mayonnaise. Dukes, it's better than Hellmann's. Fight me, Hellmann's. I should say Duke's. It's the only commercially available mayo in the U.S. that does not have any added sugars. Tell you what, we're gonna go for garlic, but I'm gonna go for fresh garlic. We'll shortcut these by taking the tip off. So we're gonna go for a clove of fresh garlic, and I'm going to pulverize it right into the mix. And by a clove, I mean we want two. Uncooked garlic is pretty pungent. Tiny whisk it together. Of course, the Duke's mayonnaise also has a little bit more flavor to it, so we might get away with. I'm going for two. I'm going for two. I got two out. I'm going for two. We're going to make it nice and garlicky. Good idea. Gives our salmon a chance to rest for a minute before I bite into it as well. I've always wanted to make aioli from scratch, like the traditional way, because the way they make like pre-made aiolis, store-bought aiolis, they're essentially making mayonnaise and adding a bunch of garlic to it. But the original aioli had no egg in it at all. Egg is an excellent emulsifier, but it turns out garlic itself is also an emulsifier, just significantly weaker emulsifier than egg. But if you pulverize, adding a little bit of paprika for some color, if you pulverize your garlic into a really, really fine paste, it will start to take in oil and emulsify it the way eggs do. You can get about 2 to 3 times the volume of oil emulsified into the garlic, and it'll form a thick, cohesive sauce. And that's real aioli. That's proper aioli, and it's just oil, garlic, and a little bit of salt, and that's it. Opened the fridge thinking I was going to grab something. It wasn't gonna, I was thinking about capers. I think we're going to skip the capers. I think we're going to be good. So this is the cheater mayonnaise based aioli, which we'll taste. Ooh, pungent, strong. Ooh, you only need a little bit of that. Ooh, you only need a little bit of that. Let's have it dribble off the side there. Dribble off the side there. And dribble off the side there. Okay, strong stuff. Okay, that's the main plate, which is just a fish and a vegetable. The accompaniment here also needs to be dressed before we move forward. It receives cheese, which I know I haven't opened this, and thus it's not a have to use up situation, but I've had this for a while. Last time you mentioned, I believe it was you, Rui, mentioned potentially using cotija, and I said I didn't have any. Well, I was rummaging around, and it turns out I was a liar, and I had this one unopened in there already. It had just gotten kind of shuffled away. So we're taking a bit of it out. And I also want to garnish it with a few pieces of fresh pineapple. These nice skinny spears. I think I want a little bit more cheese than that. Yeah, there's that little dollop of really rich garlic mayo. It's tangy and it's very garlicky. Um, so, and there you have it. What do you think? It'll look better in the official photos. Which we will go take right now. Everything is ready to go. So, get this guy. Okay. Like I said, not a super long one today. Started late and we're ending early. So it's combo deal. Let's see if I can't get an angle on these guys. There you go. There you go. Okay. Photos taken. Let's come back. The one, of course, that you're most interested in is the pineapple soup, which I'm interested to see if it's improved at all in the brief rest we gave it. It has not been given a extremely long rest, so it might not have changed a ton, but give it a chance. And I also have not tasted it with the cheese yet, which was, according to the site, according to, well, what the heck was the site called? Something adventure. Fearless Dining was an important element of it. It's hard to see because it's kind of white on the camera here. So let's give that one a go first, because that is the one that we're all here more interested in learning about. So get a little bit of our cheese, scoop it up. Mmm. Ooh, the cheese really does change it. Ooh, that's really good. So by itself, without the cheese, it's super light. It tastes almost like a sorbet. It's super light, but there's no ice in it, so it's not icy. It's light and fruity. It doesn't have much of that acidity, that tang to it. I think the coconut milk has helped mellow that out. Because it's just like bright and light and fresh. It tastes super clean. This would be excellent on a hot summer's day like we've been having. But then the cheese, so that part didn't taste much different than when I tasted it earlier for the seasoning test. But tasting it with the cheese, so cotija, if you're not familiar, this cheese here, cotija, is a young, crumbly, salty cheese from Mexico. And what it's giving me here, so it says aged, but it's a pretty young age. It's not like a really long aged cheese. What it gives us here is it gives us a little bit of funk and a little bit of salt and a little bit of texture. That goes really amazingly well with this light, bright fruitiness. There's always a little bit of a concern combining a cheese that's got a little bit of a funk to it with some things where that funkiness can get amplified and it can end up tasting skunky. You gotta be careful. That happens a lot with fish. If you put an aged cheese with fish, it'll often make the fish taste spoiled. Not so here with this. The bright freshness and the sort of fatty saltiness of the cheese complement each other really well. And it honestly might just be this kind of cheese that works. Because the flavor of the soup is so mild that I wouldn't really want a stronger cheese than this. But the saltiness really helps it. So I think if you went for like an Italian aged cheese, it would be too strong. I actually want a little bit more of the cheese. Because I poured quite a large bowl of soup here, so I want a little bit more of the cheese part. Not too much. I want each scoop to be like just a little bit of cheese. That's a good combo, though. That's so interesting, too. I wouldn't do this. The recipe actually specifically says don't do this with canned pineapple, and I fully agree. I think you'd end up with a lot more, because they add a lot of sugar to canned pineapple, but they also add a bunch of acid to it, and I think it would just be too sweet and too sharp, too sour. I'm wondering how a 10-year aged cheddar would work. I don't know. Cheddar's a much more assertive flavor. Cotija doesn't. It's got a little bit of that aged funk to it, but it's not really a super assertive flavor. I don't know. I wouldn't say absolutely not. I'd give it a go, but I'm also not going to say absolutely yes. I'm going to push a snooze button on that thing because we're going to taste over here now our snake gourd and our caramelized salmon. So let's get into the salmon. Comes off the skin pretty well. Ooh, it's got a really like dark char flavor on top, but not burnt, not acrid. And the little touch of the creamy sauce isn't overwhelming it. It's got enough flavor on its own that the garlicky, lemony sauce is not, at least at first bite. This one has more, so we'll give it a test. Yeah, it's not. I gave it a little drizzle because the sauce by itself is pretty punchy, but it's the salmon is flavorful enough that it is pushing back, and they're finding a balance. But I really like the dark, charred flavor of this burnt sugar that's on the surface. I got that to right where I was aiming for. Nice, even sort of, well, not even, a nice, rich, just shy of black. Which, if you got that without the sugar, your salmon would be burnt. The sugar is 100% what did this. This is a very fine fleshed salmon too. The flakes are very, very close together and very, very fine, which I believe is because it is a wild, smaller variety of salmon. Good shout on the on this stuff, on the imitator garlic aioli. wouldn't have thought of that, but having a sauce for the plate is good, and I think it actually enhances the fish quite a bit. And finally, let's have a bite of one of these snake gourd pieces. Yep. They retain their, I don't know if you can tell. They still have their crunch to them. They hold their texture really, really, really well. The cucumber flavor really mellowed out with the cooking, and they're honestly, they don't taste like much. They taste a lot like olive oil. Yeah, they taste a lot like olive oil. I think I cooked all the flavor out of them, even with just the brief time they were in there. So if you use them, eat them raw, or understand that they're going to be in your cooked dish mostly for texture. I'm still a big fan of them. They're interesting. I think if we had buttered them, they would just taste like butter. As it is, I don't mind they taste like olive oil. Like I said, I'm a fan of them, but they're not like wowing me the way breadfruit does. I wonder if you could stuff them, because they're pretty sturdy. And the spongy stuff on the inside isn't that hard to get out. I wonder if you could just cut the end off and like hollow it out and stuff it with something. How is it with the imitation aioli? Let's do a dipper. I bet you it's going to taste like the imitation aioli. And it does. So it's a textural contrast to the rest of the plate, but it's not much of a interesting flavor contrast because it is mostly just a texture at this point, which is fine because the big flavor contrast is this bright, fresh fruit soup. So I don't need the vegetable here to be a big flavor contrast. But it is nice to have as a texture contrast because the salmon is pretty soft and the soup is obviously a soup. So having two sort of soft things, having one thing that's crunchy alongside them is definitely a good textural balance for the plate. Yeah, stuff them like a jalapeno. I bet you could get that. I bet you could get the inner. If you got like a long, I actually have one. A long skinny spoon, because it's long and skinny, you could get down in there and scrape that stuff out, and then you could fill it because it's really quite a sturdy structure, even when cooked. So you could probably fill it with meat or cheese or something, and it would hold together. And you only have to worry about having one end open. You could leave the other end just intact. That's an interesting idea. I would have to get some fresh ones to experiment with on that. I have another one here, but these are getting a little bit... They're getting a little bit old. Well, they're still pretty sturdy, actually. We might test that out in the future. I have another one there. We'll play around with this. This vegetable, which I had never heard of before I got it at the farmer's market and tried it out with you guys live on the show, has really been getting my wheels turning. It's kind of a strange thing, but it has properties that that other things don't. So it's very, very much like it's opening up some windows. We have a couple minutes. I've burned out my grace period on our pre-roll ads by skipping a couple now because I didn't want to interrupt my tasting. So we are going to hit the last snooze and raid us out because it is time. Yeah, I will look for them again and we will try to give them a tester. Wow, it's getting dark all of a sudden. Big cloud moved in, I guess. We will give them some test runs with stuffing them, because I think that's a solid idea. See how they work. I'm obviously not going to do that right now, and probably if we get lucky, I'll find some. I'm going to miss the farmer's market this weekend. I'd have to get lucky to try them out, because I got these at the farmer's market. I didn't get these at the grocery store. So I don't have a reliable source of them. But we'll give them a test. Yeah, thank you for hanging out. I love it when y'all show up. I love it when you stay and hang out. I hope it's entertaining. I hope you learned something. If you've got a nice ripe pineapple, I'd say give this a go. It's real subtle, but it's light and fresh. Very, very nice sort of summer thing. I would eat this for without the cheese. I'd eat this as a smoothie. With the cheese, I'd probably even eat this just as a lunch by itself. So that was good. And then I wanted to sort of round out the meal, so we did a thing on the side. Where should we go today? We're going to raid out before the timer runs down on us. Nobody's cooking. We went for Jen on Tuesday. Okay. We're gonna raid Celebridream, who is mature content warning. I'm gonna give you guys a preemptive mature content warning. He's playing A Sucker for Love, the Cthulhu dating sim. So it's a dating sim about horrible monsters. So, you know, content warning. So if you're not interested in that, I would say duck out now, or stick with, say hi, and then duck out. Yeah, it's yeah, we're gonna check it out. I'm not familiar with it, but I guess we'll find out when we get there. But yeah, let me pop over to my main cam. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for showing up. Thursdays might get into our regular rotation. I am still throwing ideas at myself about how to restructure my weeks, because I want to get off of Tuesdays if I can. So we'll see. I might end up with, I don't know. But yeah, here's the countdown. So I will catch you next week. No stream on Saturday. I'll catch you next week. Bye.